Shalom Mishpacha. Welcome again to Get Organized God's Way. I'm Eileen Koff, and as a certified professional organizer, my ministry is here to help you find the calm, the peace, the shalom in your home. And in this world, it's not that easy to do. The world and the enemy of this world has kept us so, I don't know what's the word, involved in other things other than the seeking of God's will in his order, that we are just so bombarded every day with the stuff around us that it's so hard to find his peace. So I'm just so grateful that you're here with me today. I'm going to be talking about a subject that is rarely ever discussed in the professional organizing world. So before we get started, I just want you to understand one thing. My videos, these episodes, are not going to be your average kind of things that you're going to see everywhere. They are not about the world's concept of tidying up. Although I do give you really good practical application, because as a professional organizer, I wouldn't be doing the purpose that God had placed me in if I didn't give you practical application for, to back up what God's word has to say. So what the bottom line, and I always state this in my videos, is that his shalom, his order and his peace that comes into your life when your home and your environment is in order. What it does, bottom line, is that it brings about a build of your relationships with those who are in your home, versus when everything is chaotic. It brings about his peace. So you begin to understand, to be able to hear his voice, because the clutter is no longer screaming at you. So I just wanted to just re-emphasize that the purpose, my plan that God has placed within me, my purpose is to teach you how to bring his shalom, so that because without it in your home, it affects every aspect of your life. And I'm going to be talking about an aspect of your life that I've not yet talked about. So this is going to be a new one. And I just hope you put on your seatbelt and strap in and stay with me for the entirety of today's message, because it's going to be a subject that you probably have never heard before. I get that a lot from, I'm teaching a Bible study on Thursdays. In fact, tonight I have one more Bible study after tonight, on Thursday nights. So tonight is going to be my spiritual warfare chapters. And this is all about, that's what clutter is, bottom line. It's nothing more than spiritual warfare. And the way we go about cleansing our homes is by, yielding the sword. And so I have 2 chapters in Get Organized God's Way that will basically explain how spiritual warfare is the only aspect of getting rid of clutter. And I'm going to go not into those words directly in today's episode, but it's going to give you a understanding that how the clutter has to be dealt with on a spiritual aspect more so than on the physical aspect. And so we'll get into it. So before we do, let's start in prayer. Father God, I ask you to reveal to your servant the words that I would speak to unveil the concepts that our generation has held on to for so many, many, many past years. It's been passed down to us the way we live. Our society says that the more we have, the happier we'll be. Our society says that by doing A, we will be able to experience joy and happiness. And we know, Father, from your word that only you provide that joy within us. And by seeking stuff, it only hampers the joy and the purpose that you had planned for us in the day. So I ask, Father, that through my words, that you would challenge your kingdom to see things very differently. And that because they see things from your perspective and not what the world has taught us through generations, that they will be changed. And why to be changed? For your glory. Because one day soon, Father, we will be in your presence, sitting at that banquet table, experiencing the joy and the blessings that you had set before us. So I pray, Father, that these episodes will reach those who have not heard these things like this before, and that they will be drawn closer and deeper into a relationship with you because of it. That is my heart. That is what brings me the joy. So I pray all of this in Yeshua's name. Amen. All right. So, as I said before, this week's episode is going to center on a topic that is very rarely ever spoken about in the professional organizing world. And it's basically how clutter can make us sick. Okay. Now, I've talked about the spiritual implications on every episode and how it affects us, and our clutter affects us in so many different ways, spiritually, emotionally, physically, in that aspect. But never have I gone into the specificness of how the root causes in each room as a representation, a symbolic representation, can make us physically ill, okay? And when we're physically ill, as so many of my people that have contacted me, I would say a good 50 to 75% of those that have contacted me have said that, Eileen, I'm dealing with this issue, a physical issue, an ailment. I'm not well. I'm this and that. I'm this. And they have not understood that the clutter that they have presented into their home may not be the reason. And I'm not saying it is the reason, but it is certainly a contributing factor of why they are acting, why they are feeling the way they are feeling. Okay. And so when I have had the privilege and the opportunity to help them declutter their space, they begin to feel differently. They do. And so that's why I decided that today would be a good episode to explain to you in specific terminology how each room that we live in has a specific root cause of our physical ailments. And so symbolically, yes, in that respect, that each room will affect us this way, but that by decluttering and by bringing that peace into these spaces, wellness in many different areas begin to enter into us as well. Okay, so I speak about this in my Get Organized God's Way study very, very briefly, but I decided that this was such a different topic that I should take a whole episode on Messianic Lamb Network and share this with you so that you would see this, you would dive deeper into this and understand this from a different vantage point. Okay, so I have my notes here, so I don't want to forget anything. Okay, so I have all of these notes here that help me understand and make sure that I say what I need to say when I say it. Okay, so basically I say that wellness in the home, how clutter makes us sick. All right. So it's safe to say that most people understand that junk food, okay, is aptly named, right? So let's take a few minutes and think about how this correlates to the junk or the clutter that's in our homes. So when clutter overtakes an area in our homes, it often leads to an unhealthy physical atmosphere, which spills over negatively and affects our family and our relationships. And as I've said every time, it is our relationships that are number one. Our relationships with Yeshua and our relationships with each other is what God says is the most important, and how clutter affects each one of those. Okay. So it's safe to say that a diet consisting of heavily on fast and processed foods also leads to poor health, right? So junk food, processed foods, those kinds of things, science backs me up. It says that's going to lead to poor health. Well, let's just take the junk. Let's just take the clutter into our rooms and how that is also going to lead to poor health. Okay. So when clutter abounds, dust builds up because cleaning it becomes almost impossible, right? I just had a session with a client who we were dealing with her nightstand. Okay. And the stuff on her nightstand was, there for months. And as we took everything off of the nightstand, we noticed, well, I noticed before she noticed, this layer of dust that was on it. And I said, do you see this? She goes, yes. I said, well, do you realize that as you're seeing, I'm going to get into this in the bedroom, but do you realize that as you're seeing this, that it's affecting your sleep? She goes, no, Eileen, I never figured that out until now because I never saw it. And because I never saw it, I never realized it was there. Okay. So I've seen also in the bathrooms, and I'm going to talk about that in specifics in a minute, but where there is so much clutter buildup that the shower is unusable. I've seen this not just once or twice, but I've seen this multiple times, that in the spare shower or whatever, there's so much stuff in there, you cannot take a shower in there. I would say, and at the same time, do you know what's building up in that shower, in the shower or in the bathtub or whatever? Mildew and mold. It's in there, okay? But you can't see it because the clutter is distracting you from it, okay? And you know that when there is mildew and then there is mold in certain areas, it will affect everything, your health in dramatic ways. Okay, so what is clutter? Let's talk about that for a second. Clutter is nothing more than the goods that are no longer serving a purpose. So let's say, you bought, I don't know, something for the garage, and you decided, that you didn't need it, but it's still there. It's not serving a purpose. So it's only creating clutter. Okay, because you're not giving it to someone who might need it. You're not using it the way it was intended for you to use it. It's just sitting there collecting dust, maybe collecting mold, mildew, all kinds of stuff. Maybe rats getting underneath it. I've seen that. Okay. But it's not goods. Clutter is nothing more than goods that are no longer serving the purpose that they were bought for. So that's the bottom line. So I've often said that we often hang on to clutter out of fear. That is the number one reason we have clutter. Fear that we're going to need the item someday. Fear that we will not be able to purchase it or find it when we need it. Or fear that one day someone we know is going to need it. Okay. I don't get that, but so many people have this concept of, I got to hang on to it because my neighbor might need this next week. They don't even know you have it. Okay. But hanging on to clutter The number one reason we hang on to clutter is fear. Okay? So is there anything in God's word that addresses this issue? God is very clear that our hearts and our hands must continually be open to give generously. Okay? In Luke 6:38, Jesus says, "Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaking together, running over, will be poured into your lap. With the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Okay? So that is about being generous. And I have always said that clutter is the fear. Remember, we talked about this just now. Fear of holding on to something out of many different reasons for fear. But when we have such a tight fist and we hold on to something, instead of opening it up and letting it go, then God provides blessings to us in ways we have never seen or understood. And that's scriptural, and that is the way he works, because we're not supposed to know. All right, so when we are challenged to be generous or to release things, our physical spaces and when we are challenged to be generous, okay, or to release the things that we know that we are no longer needing, our physical spaces get dammed up and they're unable to flow, much like when junk food dams up the flow that is within our own bodies. Okay, when we, bottom line, we are what we eat. And in much of the same way, we are greatly affected by how much of the stuff we keep. If we live in a messy, cluttered environment, it's going to manifest not only in our minds, but also in our bodies. So I read this article, it's got to have been about 15 years ago. But this is one of the best things I have read about combining health and clutter. It's by a Dr. Susan Lark, and she said that several years ago, she recognized that the German word for clutter is Klobber. It's spelled Clobber, or it was another word for clot, Clot. So when blood is stagnant, clots develop, restricting blood flow. Chronic stagnation results in cysts, in lumps, and in tumors. When the liver is stagnant or stuck in its ability to process chemicals, toxins, nutrients, or hormones, you end up with a poorly functioning detoxification system. And what results from that? Mental fog, constant fatigue, headaches, and emotional turmoil. So depending upon where the clot is, it can have grave consequences. The clutter in our home can also have dire consequences on the health of our environment. So in my organizing assessments with sessions with clients, the first thing that I discuss with them is that the process of organization must begin with the examination of the excess of what's causing the dysfunction of the room. So we look around the room and we see all the different things that's blocking the flow. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the arteries and all the other things, because these are things that keep things flowing. And when there's objects and there is stuff that's blocking it, okay, just like our arteries and things that I'll be discussing in a few minutes, it dams up, it doesn't flow, and it presents all kinds of issues, not only within the home, the shalom, but also with you, okay? And so the first thing I have my clients do is when they're looking at a room, I have them create a vision for the area, okay? What do you want it to look like? And then I have them before we do anything, I have them make a list of the criteria of what is going to stay and what is going to go. And that's going to be essential to any success that they have in decluttering and bringing shalom into their home. So let's examine the roots of clutter. Okay, in Colossians 2:7, it states, "Let your roots grow down into him, and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness." Let me state that again. When we look at our homes, okay, and we look and we see exactly what is going on in the dysfunction of our homes, we need to look at the root of the situation. Okay, so symbolically speaking, when our roots are grown into Jesus, as it says in here, when our roots are grown down into him, our lives reflect simplicity and an order. Conversely, in just the opposite, when our roots are grown into the world system, we see a different picture in our lives, don't we? Okay, so today's episode is going to illuminate the roots of disorganization and how each room can affect our health within our homes. So I am not by any stretch the only person you're going to get this information from. There are literally thousands and thousands of great organizing books out there. And I'm not going to go so much into the how-tos, because you can go pick up or you can go online and find out a lot of the how-tos. I will talk about some practicalities. Yes, that's me. But to go more into the symbolic understanding of our health in our rooms is what I will be doing today. So if you want to figure out how to do this, you can either call me for a consultation or go online and find out, say how to organize a kitchen. Okay. So, and it'll teach you that. But, so I just wanted to make sure that you understood I wasn't going to go deep into how to do this, but why you do this for health reasons. Okay. So it's, what is hard to find is the information that will get you to the root cause of why the clutter is there in the first place. So why do we have certain piles in certain locations? And what do those piles say about ourselves? In symbolic terms, each part of the house carries special significance. I don't know if you recognize that, but I hope you do by the end of this today. And where clutter resides, may have a symbolic spiritual component to your life. The kitchen is going to have a special spiritual component versus the bedroom that has a special spiritual component. Okay, so let's begin by dividing up the home into rooms, and let me take you on this journey to expose the roots of clutter. So I heard this not too long ago, probably about 3 days ago. I was listening to K-Love, and one of the people on K-Love said, "Why do people think that this time of the year is the time that they start cleaning their home? What does spring have to do with house cleansing?" Okay. And I so wanted to call them, right? I was in my car and couldn't do that. But I just thought how interesting that when people begin seeing new life in the springtime, like in Passover, getting rid of the leaven and all of that, but they see this new life coming on the trees and in the ground, that they feel the need to, start cleansing their home. But many people do not understand that you cannot clean your home when there is so much clutter and dysfunction hiding the junk that's beneath it. Okay, so I wanted to call them and say, but first you need to declutter your space before you can clean it. But that was just so very funny. And that not only does the spring cleaning get to the root of why the clutter was there in the first place, because you're going to sit there and you go, oh, I remember, I couldn't find this. Where you know, I found this. I've been looking for this for years. I've seen that. Okay. But it's also how that affects your health. Okay. So let's start with the kitchen, because kitchen is, I call it the heart of the home. And more than cooking central, it's a certain place of nourishment. The kitchen is where we sort through our feelings, where their interpersonal conflicts often happen. And also it's a place where we get clear on our priorities, because the kitchen, like I said before, is the heart of the home. I don't know about you, but when we have people over into our home and we may be having a sit-down dinner, people don't go to the living room. People don't go outside into my porch area. Where do they congregate? In the kitchen. I guess they want to see what food I'm making. I don't know. But the concept is that the kitchen is the drawing place for people to be. And I know that that is in everyone's home. It is sort of like the central gathering point. It's sort of like where those major decisions are made, because that's the kitchen. Okay. So when the kitchen is cramped with clutter, it makes it hard to nourish anyone on the physical or on the spiritual level. I'll give you an example. I had a client who wanted to open up a bakery, and his mother had recently passed, and there was stuff all over the place. And he goes, Eileen, I can't even develop recipes with all of this stuff. I can't even move. And I don't know what to do with all of this stuff, because it's not mine, it's my mom's, but he was living with her, or actually she had moved into his place. And he goes, I just don't know what to do first. I know what my priority is. I just don't know how to get there. And I'm sure that that's very similar to many of us, right? So when the clutter is cleared, that's when our creativity comes forth. That's when he was able to make the recipes that he eventually opened up the bakery, that he would, it's where those new thoughts come in that normally would not have when there's so much clutter, especially in the kitchen. Now, when the kitchen is often a place where we dump things like our daily mail, our electronics, our chargers, from our purses to school bags to dog bowls to vitamins, and many of the miscellaneous other things in our lives. And all of this clutter in the kitchen can make it difficult to nourish your family, okay? So decluttering your kitchen often opens up space for you to receive support and comfort that you need in your life. When the kitchen fosters that kind of support, not only can life decisions be made with clarity and with confidence, but also there is a marked increase in nourishment, both in terms of nutrition and in relationships. Okay, so when people gather around your kitchen bar, there's a much greater sense of purpose and good feelings than when there is stuff everywhere over it. Okay, so in the kitchen, I also call it the hub of the home. Like I said, it is the central area. Everyone ends up in the kitchen at some point in the day. So guess what? The kitchen gets messy really fast. And to begin the process, and in order to be fully organized, everything really should be emptied out of the space. But I want you to understand this, only one space at a time, okay? I'm not saying go into the whole kitchen and throw everything out of your drawers, because then you're going to create a bomb, okay? And that's what I call it, because that's what it looks like. So you only do like one cabinet at a time, one shelf at a time, one drawer at a time, but you take everything out of it and you look at it with discerning eyes, and you see what is necessary and what you can give to other people. Okay, so here's a checklist. You may want to write this down. I say clean out and organize your cabinets one at a time. Clean out and organize your drawers one at a time. Purge everything that is not used. Okay, so say you've got I don't know, a container of something. Make sure that you look to see if it's expired. Okay, now there's a lot of misinformation out there as to, well, just because it says it's expired A, B, and C, and D, does it really mean that? Maybe or maybe not. But that's what our internet is so valuable, because you can go to the internet and you can find out if it is something that is important. I notice I do a lot of baking. And did you know that whole wheat expires so much faster than white wheat, or all-purpose wheat, all-purpose flour? So you need to throw out your whole wheat flour much faster than you need to throw out your all-purpose flour. I didn't know that. And just because it had the date on it, now I understand. But it's those things that you need to go into your freezer, you need to go into your refrigerator, you need to clean everything out of the drawers in there and make sure that what you have in there is safe to keep. Okay. And then when everything is pulled out, it doesn't mean that you can now all of a sudden start putting things into it. Now, this is where the spring cleaning concept comes in, right? Because unless you clear out the dust, the mold, and all the things that are hampering these cabinets, and I've seen this so many times, okay? Take that Swiffer, take that that rag with some liquid in it and wipe it down, because that is going to increase, or let's put it this way, it's going to decrease the illness that dust and that mold and all that stuff is creating in the kitchen. So before you start replacing things back to where they belong, then you need to clean the space very, very well. Okay. And as you clean it, then that's going to be a marker on how well and how healthy that area is now going to become. Okay. So here's a process that I've also written for this. It's called clearing off the kitchen table. Why the kitchen table? Look at your kitchen table right now. Okay, just take a second. I'll give you 3 seconds. All right, what's on your kitchen table? Okay, usually it is the dumping ground. All right, so this would be a great place for you to begin clearing off your kitchen table and seeing where you need to be putting things, okay? And using that as a marker as to, okay, here's all the papers that are now on my kitchen table. Where do these papers go, okay? And then create some sort of a system as to how those papers need to stay so that you know how to get to those papers. It's, like I said, there's so much information out there. I'm not going to spend the time doing all of this because I have so much to go through. But that's a great place to begin in the kitchen, is your kitchen table. Okay. And just be sure that you discard all of the old, the expired, and the no longer things that are needed. Again, I just need to reemphasize that, because that affects your health more than anything else. Is when you are cooking or doing things in the kitchen, you need to be doing things that are healthy. And by using unhealthy things, it's only going to affect your health in so many ways you did not even realize. Okay, so let me see where I wanted to go here. All right, so the next room that we're going to talk about is the bathroom. And again, this is another crazy health area that we may not think of it in that context, but the bathroom is sort of like a major room where if If there are things that are taking, like I talked to you before about the clutter in the showers and stuff, if you don't take care of keeping the clutter away in the bathroom, that mold, that mildew, those things will definitely show up and affect your health in ways that you haven't even seen before, because no one's ever told you about it. Not your fault. It's just that, you need to begin looking at things from a health perspective and not just the decluttering perspective. Okay, so I write here that never underestimate your health in the bathroom. The bathroom is where we pamper ourselves and we prepare to face the world. Think about all the products now under your sink that you never use. Okay, I just was with a client the other day and she had a ton of toiletries all over the place. So the first thing we needed to do was just decide, are those toiletries really, number one, do you need them? Number two, are they, still usable? Now again, the expiration date, if it was like over a year expiration date, it definitely went, okay? But it's also medication that we have in the bathroom that is over expired, okay? Say you have tablets that are like a month or 2 months over expired, and I'm sure you can still use those. But if they're over 6 months or a year, I would definitely get rid of those things, okay? And those are why? Because if you're going to use a tablet for, let's say, for upset stomach or something like that, and you're using something that's a year old, that's not going to be good for your body, okay? And you didn't notice that it was a year old because you have all that stuff that's all over the place to begin with. So as you declutter it, you begin to see things in terms of its expiration dates. Okay, so clearing the clutter in your bathroom will not open you to those great aha moments that you have in the shower. Okay, but it's going to start your mornings with renewed energy and vitality. So I have so many clients that say, Eileen, the shower is my prayer space, right? And I said, why? They said, because when the water comes over my head and I feel like my brain is cleared of all of the junk that's around me, and I'm only thinking about my head and how good that feels with the water on top of it. It's like I have this relationship with God that says, thank you so much for this water. It makes me feel so good. I've heard this. And it starts my day in such a great way until I open up my eyes. I'm going to have to do some research as to what's going on in this place. All right. So if you could be a favor and just, pray the enemy to, give a standoff here. Lord, I just pray that that the enemy has no more control over this internet or my computer, in Jesus' name. Okay, so clearing the clutter, like I said, so there's a product that I often preach about. It's called Aqua Notes, and it's a little thing that you can stick on the wall in your shower, and it has a pencil next to it. And when you get all of those great ideas in the shower, and by the time you get out of the shower, you've forgotten them, the Aqua Notes allow you to write those down. It's a really great kind of like a Christmas gift or something that you can give to someone, and they go, that's going to be great, because in the shower, I just feel so good and I get all of these great thoughts, and I know you do too. Okay, so the next room is the basement. Okay, now what does the basement represent? The basement represents your foundation. Okay, and let's put it this way. I've talked about mold and mildew in the bathroom and in the kitchen, but where is it going to be prevalent more than any other space in your home? But in the basement. Now, if you're like me and you live in an area that does not have basements, yay. For the past 25 years before I moved here, I had a basement. Okay. And I can tell you that there were many times, like maybe once or twice a year, I had to go through that basement and start spraying with Clorox or some sort of mold, remedy to get rid of the stuff that, you know, I wouldn't have seen otherwise had things been put in front of it. Okay. So not only mold and mildew, but where do the animals tend to come into a home? If you have a basement, in the basement, all the rats and the mice, roaches, the ants, this is where they congregate. All right. And that is not a healthy place. All right. So you need to put out the traps. You need to do all those things that you can. But if your basement is filled with clutter and disorganization and you can't see it, you can't get to it, your health is going to suffer immensely, because every time you go down into the basement, you're going to be breathing things that you should not be breathing. Okay. So I write here that many people have a just-in-case storage facility. And very often the basements contain old or forgotten things, and these items, unattended, disordered, and stuck, have serious impact on your general health, especially on your emotional health. The stagnicity in storage areas can block inspiration, keeping you from getting your gifts out into the world and from becoming your best and brightest self. Why the basement, Eileen? Because our basements have numerous and varied activities associated within the space. These are areas where we store things that we have not made sense of, but we're going to need them one day. Remember fear? Our basements are the foundations of our lives. They become jumbled and confusing when there are piles and cartons representing old pursuits. Let's talk about all those old college books, for example. Okay, and all those past dreams and all those past manuscripts that you may have wanted to get to that you never did. Okay, when there is so much of the past in our foundation, our future purposes are put on hold. And before you put something else into the basement or into the other storage areas of the home, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. 1, do I love it? 2, do I need it now? Now, okay? Not tomorrow, not maybe 3 weeks from now. Now, okay? Can I see someone else in my family loving it or needing it in the next year? Okay. And my best question is, what would be the worst thing that could happen if I didn't have it? Okay. So decluttering the basement frees you to let go of useless items, and at the same time allows you the choice of future possibilities. Right? Let's get rid of the roaches. Let's get rid of the mice. Let's get rid of all those things that are impacting your health. Not only the clutter, but that are actually impacting your health in the basement. All right, the next one, my favorite of all of them, I'll explain why, is the bedroom. And if we stay here, we'll do the other rooms on my next episode. Okay, so I write here that clutter in the bedroom. How does this affect our health? Oh my gosh, in ways you probably have never understood before. I call the bedroom the alpha and the omega. The bedroom is the first and the last place in our daily life. How we begin the day depends on how well we rested, and our rest depends upon the environment in the room. The bedroom reflects areas in our lives that are particularly private. So many clients ask for an enhanced romance and passion, because many others ask for better sleep and improved health. So there are many things there are so many reasons why people want an improved environment in their bedroom. One is for all those private reasons, and other reasons is just I need better health because my rest is totally impacted upon the health of me in all aspects. There's so many sleep studies out there that say that if you're not getting adequate sleep, and I don't have to go into it, you know this, or it is easily found, that if your bedroom is filled with clutter and disorganization, when you look at it before you go to bed at night, it is going to impact how well you sleep. Now, not only is your sleep going to be impacted, but what happens during our sleep? I pray that you dream, okay? And I always say that God gets a better hold of me and in the nighttime when I'm dreaming than any time during the day, because he can influence my dreams in ways that I would never have understood otherwise. So your dream state is affected in your environment, because if you are so discouraged and depressed and anxious and those things because of the environment that is within your bedroom, that is going to affect not only your dream state, but it is going to affect your walk with the Lord every day of your life. Okay? Now, I've had so many people go through this experience with me when we did the bedroom. And I can say for 100% of the time, they didn't realize how important it was to not only, have a bedroom that increased the shalom, the peace, the order, but that as I said at the beginning of this program, that when they were able to clear the dust, they were able to clear the cobwebs, they were able to clear all those things that as they were breathing them in at nighttime, affecting their health, that when they no longer had that, I just had a lady in my Bible study said, Eileen, she was in tears, okay, about the dramatic difference it made in her life just by doing the nightstand. She goes, Eileen, I never saw the stuff because it was so filled. And when I got rid of the dust, not only on my nightstand, but over my bed, in the back of the bed, go look behind your bed, okay? There's not going to be stuff there, but there's going to be a lot of dust there, okay? And take the Swiffer, which is a great product because it reaches way in the back there and you can get it all in one sweep. And you will be amazed how much dust and grime is behind the bed if it's up against a wall, as most of us have. And your sleep will be so much better because of it. Okay, so let me see where else. Let's make sure. I say the stress caused by the clutter and chaos in your bedroom keeps you feeling frazzled and unable to deeply relax, rest, and connect with your partner intimately. When the bedroom is cluttered with activities not associated with rest, and this is really, really important. Say you have a desk in your bedroom, okay, and it's piled high with papers. And or let's say you have a television in your bedroom and you like to watch these shows right before you go to bed that depict violence or anger. Then these activities, these reminders of unfinished products, these reminders of don't look at the news before you go to bed, especially take the television out of your bedroom, please. Okay. That's all I can say, because you want your bedroom to be a place where it brings you peace. And when you're watching stuff before you go to bed at night, that is going to affect your sleep. That's going to affect your dream state. That is going to affect your relationship with Yeshua, because he can't work with you in the way that he needs to work in you in your unconscious state. Okay. So you may never have thought of this before. You may totally disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But I've seen this happen, okay, not from my vantage point only, but from the vantage point of the clients that I have helped numerous times. So I can say it may not work for you, but it's worked for everybody else that I have helped. To say, where's the dust, where's the cobwebs, where's all those things that were behind the stuff that was in the bedroom. Not only that, but it brings up bad memories, it brings up all kinds of things. And the rest that you have is so incredibly important for your health, okay? Because your rest dictates the health that you're going to have for the rest of the day. Okay, so I have 9 questions here about the bedroom and how physical clutter interferes with sleep. So I've already discussed this one. It says, do you have a television in your bedroom? If so, do you set it on sleep mode to shut it off at a certain time? 2, do you find yourself falling asleep on the living couch or family room couch to avoid the clutter in your bedroom? Okay. 3, if you're homesick, do you find it difficult to heal and rest because of the clutter in your bedroom? I just had a client that had this just like last week that was homesick. And she goes, Eileen, she goes, while I was homesick, guess what I did? I said, what did you do? She says, I got rid of all the clutter and all the stuff that was in my bedroom because it was making me look. She says, whenever I looked at it, it was making me feel worse. She says, I could barely lift my head off the pillow. She says, but I did a little bit every day. And after 4 or 5 days, she goes, Eileen, I felt so much better because it was no longer there. Okay, so are you aware that the light from your cable box can be a distraction to you falling asleep? I didn't know that, but I did some research on all of that, and I found that to be true. Do you stay up late? Do you stay up later when you bring other activities such as paying bills into the bedroom? Okay. Where do you keep your cell phone? In your bedroom, or do you remember to lower the volume at night? There's so many studies that are coming out now that says, take your cell phone and put them away and don't bring them to your bedroom. I went, okay, I got that one. Okay, unless it's an emergency, do you feel compelled to answer incoming text messages and emails after you are already in bed? Just don't bring it to your bedroom. Okay, do you set boundaries about the quality time that you spend with yourself or your spouse and partner? Okay, so the bedroom is a really great place to bring about intimacy, especially time. And when there is stuff all over it, it's hard. It's hard to feel that intimacy. It's hard to, to just be yourself with your partner when all the other stuff is clamoring for your attention. And I love this one. I use this one all the time. I says, do you use any type of aromatherapy to occupy and calm down your space? Lavender is just so incredibly important in a bedroom. Okay, so remember to do this in your bedroom. This will help clear the cobwebs out of your brain. Every day, make your bed. Just saying. If your mattress is uncomfortable, get a new mattress. All the extra furniture in your bedroom that you're not using, bring it to another room or get rid of it. Spend time each night putting things away and pick out what you're going to wear tonight. And if you have multiple bedrooms in your home, do you sleep in another bedroom just to avoid the clutter in the ones that you normally sleep in? So if I've answered any of those questions in the bedroom, I'd love for you to email me. And I'd love to have a conversation how you are going to be seeing clutter not only as a spiritual issue, which is all new, an emotional issue, a physical issue, a mental issue, but how these episodes affect your health issues as well. So before we wrap up today, I just want to take a moment and thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. And it's been an honor to share this time with you. So if today's message has been any source of encouragement, please look at the bottom down there and email me at 𝙩𝙤𝙙𝙖𝙮@gmail.com or go to my website at 𝙩𝙤𝙀ministries.com. And I have now a video series on the top of my 𝙩𝙀 𝙀 Ministries for all of these episodes that I have done in the past. There's about 30 of them that are under the video. So go check those out. There's so many of them up there now, and I'm so blessed that my web person put that up there. I'm so grateful. So additionally, if you see this on YouTube, please subscribe, because when new things come out, you're going to know about them. And remember that each one of these sessions that I do here is going to impact something different. I've never talked about the health in your home and how clutter affects it. So each one of these episodes is going to address something different or from a different perspective. Even my warfare chapters, I will talk about the same things, but I always bring in something new, something relevant that I didn't have in it before. So let's remember this, that organizing is not solely about creating order. It is about making space for what is meaningful in your lives. It is about creating shalom in your home, because if there is shalom, then there is God. And when God is within your walls, there is the peace, the blessings, and just the utter closeness that you get with Yeshua when you hear him daily. So I pray that God's shalom comes into every aspect of your life. Shalom, mishpacha. If you missed today's show or want to watch it again, or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lamnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lamnetwork.tv website. I'm 𝙩𝙀 𝙀, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.